Hey there, welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about how skill checks and role-playing and kind of these things work together. I was working on the 5-room dungeon video for you guys, and I built a dungeon, which I'm going to have to use now, but apparently didn't hit record on OBS, so yeah, so that video might be next week. But I was watching a video from Hex Press, which I'll put a link to in the description, and he was talking about something he had read on. You watch the video, but it was the idea came out that or his presentation was about being more obvious and exaggerating things, and it made me start to think about not just as a DM, which is really his advice. You know, make sure that like you kind of signal that things are here. You know, the it's quiet around the house, the boards across the windows, stuff like that. So the players don't just walk into a space and all of a sudden it's like, no, there's monsters in here. I'm thinking more on the line of role play, like interaction with people. And what came to mind too was Matthew Perkins' DM. I'll put a link again to his video down below. He made a video about role playing as a writer, is basically how he talks about it, and the idea of like using words and how you do things. And I thought kind of those were great ideas. And it occurred to me that when you think about, and then based on the video I did last week where we were talking about newer games, old games, if you look at a game like, let's say, a more modern game, let's say 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, you've got something like an insight check, right? So if you are a DM, right, and you're running a 5th edition and you have this insight check ability, or possibly I was in a Call of Cthulhu game and the keeper had us check psychology, I think. You can basically play your NPC that is lying really straight, you know, because they're lying. And especially if they're supposed to be good at it, right? They can just lie straight face to the player, because then the player has the tool, which is the insight check or the psychology check that you're going to have them roll, or they're going to ask to roll maybe. And that is going to then give them the information they want. If you do not have that on the table as a tool, you need to be really over the top and exaggerate. If you don't, the players will have no way of knowing. So in other words, if you have this innkeeper, right, you might think, oh, well, this guy's going to poison their drinks, right? And he does it all the time. He's very clever. So he's just going to play totally straight. He's going to be the nicest guy in the world. And then you poison their drinks and all the party gets captured or they die or whatever. They're going to feel like, whoa, what happened there? You didn't give us any kind of a signal. And you'd be like, well, no, this guy has an 18 charisma and he, whatever. I played him like that. He's a really good at lying. Well, the reality is that even though that might be the case, you need to give them something to bite into. So you need to think about it. Maybe if he's really good at lying, 18 charisma, then maybe he slips up some other way, or maybe the waitress does, or there's some other signal. You can see like maybe the waitress feels guilty about it, and so when she brings it out, she like knocks over the glass or whatever at first, or it gives a look and this kind of thing. Or you can just simply have them screw up, which is what I often do. What you want to do is, if somebody is a creep or a bad guy, you want to play them that way. Even though I get that, like in a movie, you might not see that, but this is not a movie, and your players need to understand that there's a threat there. If you put it, I'm not saying you have to be like, this guy is evil, but you can play it up, And the thing is that on the end of this too is that you shouldn't always. You got to keep them on their toes. You don't always want to be super obvious about it, but you want to be very obvious. And also, sometimes you want to throw out signs that somebody might be creepy and they're not, because that's like life, right? Sometimes you suspect somebody who's not up to something, and sometimes you don't suspect people who are. But no matter what you do, you want to almost think about playing your character, playing the characters as GM, almost like you're on stage, or you're playing big and out there, right? Because you want them, and this doesn't mean voices and stuff, because you want them to. The players to pick up on it, right? One of the things I often encounter is I will be playing an NPC and the player will say something and be like, do I trust this guy? And I will say, do you? And if I'm playing them right and they are untrustworthy, they should be questioning that, right? They shouldn't be like, I don't know. You played them completely flat. Now, if you don't do voices, because I don't really do voices, if you don't feel really confident in doing that kind of manipulative acting and stuff, this is where that other video where I was talking about from Matthew Perkins comes in. You can use words, right? And you can prepare this stuff ahead of time. Use certain types of words to make sure that it's clear, right? you can say things like, oh, you prepared ahead of time. This guy's, you want the party to catch on that he's a bit creepy, so you just make notes that, oh yeah, mention that whenever he's talking to the party, he doesn't look them in the eyes, or perhaps he looks over his shoulder constantly. These kind of things. You make these notes for yourself so that these are hints to the players, right, thus the PCs, that there's something going on here. Because when there is no perception or insight or that kind of skill in the game, it's all about the role play, right? You've got to role play this NPC in a way that lets the players see that there could be something up. And again, it doesn't always have to be that way. Sometimes it can be a red herring, although if you do that too often, that's a problem, right? So you want to make sure that you kind of play it back and forth. And again, just because somebody's not trustworthy or not telling the truth doesn't mean they're evil and are going to stab the players in the back. Maybe there's another reason. Maybe they have something else going on that the players can find out about later and help them and then gain a new ally. Maybe the innkeeper is looking over his shoulder constantly, not because he's trying to poison them, but rather because he's being watched by somebody. And maybe he needs help, right? So you're doing these things to make the players see that the NPC, there's something going on here, right? What's going on? What do we think is going on? And then as they ask questions, you can start to play that up. But you need to do that initial role play, either the way that you do the voice, the way that they talk, that they slip up once in a while, in things they say, that they let things slip, that they really shouldn't. And I know you might be, again, people are going to say, well, if they're really good at it, they shouldn't make things slip. Right, but it's a game, and you got to give the players, something to hook onto, right? You got to give them something meat to hook onto. So, let them screw up, let them say the wrong thing once in a while. Let them, maybe tell a little story about themselves, and then a little bit later in the session, tell it again slightly different. And then you're like, that's not what he said last time. And that way you can put into their minds, this person might not be somebody we need to 100% trust everything they say. Because you've got to consider that typically, for most players, it can be hard for them to separate what the GM or referee or keeper or whatever game you're playing says and the NPCs, right? Especially if you're not doing voices, right? If you don't do like a voice and they just hear me as Daniel say, oh yeah, this guy, is, he's a nice guy, they're just going to take that as the GM saying that, not as, one of the patrons of the bar that's actually, in on it. So you need to make sure that you make those things clear and make sure you put out enough information for them to grab onto, and then let them do the work, of course. They're going to have to dig into it to get the bits of more information. When they say the story wrong the second time, or different the second time, maybe the players might question that, right? And then see how they react. And of course, if they get caught in it, they should look like they get caught in it. They should be like, oh, yeah, well, no, I must have been mistaken, that kind of thing. That way they're not, or maybe they'll be like, no, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. Again, right, this is maybe something that's an expert liar might not do, but you've got to do it so the players can grab onto it. And this is how you're going to get your players to engage with the NPCs and roleplay more, right? And really, if you are into that kind of play, even if you have a mechanic for it, like for instance in 5th edition where they have an insight check, you will find that if your players start to pick up on it and they kind of enjoy it, they'll stop asking for that. I've had plenty of players when I was running 5e join my group, and the first thing they say every time they met an NPC was insight check. But then after a while, they stopped doing it because the way that I play the characters, it's kind of fun to kind of chisel out whether or not you think they're actually guilty or not. That's part of the game. So, what do you guys do? This is good advice. Watch those 2 videos too, by the way. What do you guys do? Do you do different voices? Do you have people slip up? Is this something that people use, or am I just I can't be the only person who does this? Or do you make a check, even like in a SR game, you give them some kind of wisdom check or something? Do you prefer that so it's more mechanical? Or do you like the idea of letting the players kind of try to figure it out based on how you're interacting with them, whether or not they should trust somebody? So let me know in the comments below. By the way, we were, as of the recording of this, I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. So thanks, guys. Thank you to all new subscribers and the old ones. And also, pretty soon, so keep an eye out, GaryCon will go live for people to sign up for games. I'm running 5 games there. I'll put the link to my GaryCon games in the description. So if you guys want to play a game with me at GaryCon, virtual GaryCon as it would be, you can go ahead and follow that link. So until next time, thanks.